From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher. Their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher. Our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Skripchuk. And our Batman, the master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission, to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team. Dominating with Dawson.
Hey, Ben.
Hey.
Hey, Ben. One of these days, I'm so going to hook up with you. Like, I'm finally going to get
we need to reword that,
track.
perhaps?
I know. A hookup is bad. So finding you at a track would be lovely because I only see you on a computer.
That's right. It's kind of weird. It's hard to kind of build the chemistry we need to hook up spring break style this way. So we'll get
One of these days, I'm going to end up in a race car driving on the same track with you. That would be awesome.
For sure.
And I will meet you at a track, but we ain't hooking up. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, I am going to need a back rub. That's
We'll see what we can work into the schedule. Depends on how the HPV is going.
There will be lotion. All right. What are we talking about?
Not that.
This
not
is
that.
real uncomfortable real fast.
Let's go. Let's go.
I'm doing great. What's wrong?
Okay. All right. Anyway, moving on. So, Ben, I'm going into a turn, and I've got absolutely nothing to do. There's nothing I should be paying attention to. There's
totally been there.
There's nothing. I mean, I should just basically just turn the wheel and magically teleport to the exit. That's what I should be doing, right?
That's how it goes. Yeah. From one of my experiences, always you just kind of turn your brain off, whip it in. Next thing you know, you've won the race on the exit. It's great.
I know. The rest of it's just details. There's nothing I should be thinking about, nothing I should be looking at, nothing I should be feeling at all. It's just,
Right.
It's magic carpet ride. It's good to go.
Is that what you do, Vicky?
Yeah, kind of. I just at the end of straightaway, that's all I do. And I stop right there. And after that, it's just a wing and a prayer.
There you go.
Or we can stop being facetious.
Okay.
And what are we supposed to pay attention to in a turn, Ben? Because there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. Like where do we want to start? Are we starting at turn in?
Probably.
No, I think we should start at the end of the straightaway. I mean, we're driving up the straightaway.
All right.
So I would say I was driving up the straightaway.
And then I decided to pay attention to what gear I was in. Am I in the right gear?
Am I?
I would pay attention to what gear I'm in at the end of the straightaway. I would also pay attention to where, of course, you're considering traffic this whole time. But I would kind of consider which way the car is oriented with relation to the corner boards. Next thing I would pay attention to is where is my corner board that tells me when to brake or in between a couple of them. So those are sort of the things I'm looking at going headed toward turn in. Does that making sense?
Does the turn stay the same from lap to lap, or does it change? Because I know you're looking at me funny now. Because we had a person we were driving with that when they had blind crests going into a turn, they really didn't like this because they couldn't see. Mm-hmm. And my comment was the turn is the same place it was the last time we were here.
So no, the turn itself does not change. It exists in the same way, whether you can see it or not. But yeah, going in, that's what I'm thinking about. I kind of, and then so you're thinking about where to begin your braking, and then you start braking. Once I've kind of gotten the braking kicked off, my next thing I'm thinking about is where am I going to be getting off the brakes and turning in, and how far am I going to carry the brakes into turn in, that sort of thing for trail braking.
So where would your eyes be? Would they be focused on one thing, or would they be scanning things, or what would they be doing?
but they're not really. Gosh, it's hard for me to say.
They're
'cause it's so hard to
closed?
sit down and think. they're mostly open, I think. But it's so hard to even I was at the track today, thank the Lords. But it's hard for me to even picture. But I feel like I'm the kind of person who's just sort of looking here, picture. Where am I doing? What am I doing? Sort of scanning the scene. But certainly, like especially if I'm in sort of the dwell time of braking, and it's a place where you can kind of look up ahead and see what's going on. That to me, that's a great time to sort of look around track. If it's a turn, you can see something past that will give you some context of what's going on. I think braking is a good time to take the chance to look as far ahead as you can, because it's just sort of some free time while you're slowing down. There's not that much else going on, hopefully. Because even then, for me, I'm going to delay any downshifts toward the very end of braking anyway. So, as I get on the brakes and sustain it for a second, that's a chance for me to sort of look around and see where I'm going to end my brakes, then sort of take a chance to look way ahead.
So when you're getting towards the beginning of your brake zone, let's assume you have some type of marker. Are you looking at that marker, or are you looking somewhere else?
I hate to admit this out loud, but I am kind of enough of a goober about being real specific about where I brake that I do kind of end up fixating on the corner boards a little bit. I mean, I'm still looking around, but I do kind of get really zoned in on that. Is exactly where I want to begin my braking. Is I want to be pretty sure I'm relative to my usual visual spot for where I'm braking relative to the corner board. And it's not the same for everybody. Everybody thinks they're braking right next to the so-and-so, and it's all very elastic, but you should be able to do it where you're true to yourself. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm absolutely shocked that you cared that much.
But yeah, for me, I am pretty visual on whatever braking reference it is. And most of the time for us on a track, unless somebody knocks them down, there's at least some sort of corner reference where there's dots or numbers or something like that. So I usually am keyed in pretty heavily to that. That's about one of the only visuals that I'm pretty married to on track. But once the braking begins, like we talked about, that's a good time to sort of look around even before you do your downshifts. But yeah, then when you get toward the end of the braking and you're doing your downshifts, that's the time where I do sort of get sucked into looking a little bit right ahead of me just to make sure I'm sort of making my turn in work and I'm headed toward the apex. I will do a little bit of immediately before me track gazing at those moments, but not for long. I'm just sort of glancing to make sure I'm headed in the right direction, not fixating on like apex, but it becomes a bigger part of my picture and part of what I'm looking at as I'm kind of glancing around as I make my way in down toward the apex.
What about you, Miss Vicky?
So when I'm driving down at the end of the straightaway, I've just learned not to look at the paddles on the panels on the side. So now I step on the brake hard and then I start to turn in, which I'm thinking that is not good.
Nope, it's good.
No,
yeah,
well,
sounds good.
well, now that I'm actually like doing more reading, audiobook, and I'm thinking that I need to step on the brake a little hard further back and then trail brake the rest of the way. Correct?
Depends on the turn.
Okay.
Depends on the car.
Yeah. And then what I started to do after that, so I'm still kind of working at my braking on that part. And now I kind of move over to the apex.
Visually or driving?
Visually.
Okay.
Visually. I'm looking
as soon as you hit the brake, you're looking at the apex?
Yeah.
Okay.
I start to look at the apex right after that.
Okay.
And then I immediately look at track out.
Okay.
Right after.
All right. So let's add one more layer because I know it's one of the layers that you've been working on. Where are you downshifting if you're downshifting?
I am downshifting. I step on the brake and then I begin to downshift.
Immediately?
Yeah.
When do you come off the clutch?
When do I come off the clutch? When I start to trail brake through.
Then?
Oh, so you get your shift done and you hold the clutch in?
A little bit, yeah.
That's weird. No, I wouldn't do that. I would when I'm braking, I keep
no. When I'm trail braking, I kind of lift off and then I apply the gas at the same time. So
but are you doing shifts where you do the clutch like clutch in, shift gears, clutch back out, or are you ever going in, clutch in, shift gears, hold the clutch while I ride the brake, and then let it out? Do you know what I mean? Are you ever?
I do the first one.
Okay, so we're not riding the clutch or kind of.
No, we're not riding the clutch
Okay.
as much as we're doing brake and
Gotcha.
gas.
Yeah, so we should never be like putting in neutral and just sort of hold it there. If anybody's listening who has that habit, but the idea for me is I always want to do my downshifts at the very last second I can before I need to engage that gear and get back on it. So you know, a lot, and I'm also big on like if I'm in fifth gear, I will definitely cheat just straight down to third, especially, you know, if you give yourself plenty of time down at the end of the brake zone, you got plenty of time to do that shift to make sure you don't botch it because you're saving it to the very end. So usually it's not by the time the revs have come down enough toward the end of the braking zone, it's not that dramatic to shift fifth to third. So that's kind of my technique. And I think it's easier on the transmission because I see plenty of racers who as soon as they start braking, that wow, grabbing that first downshift, even sometimes too early, and that's definitely not good for the drive line. It doesn't make you any faster.
Unsettles the car too.
And if you don't get it all done anyway, you risk spinning the car if you start doing that pop the clutch on the turn. Yeah. So you don't want to do that. That sends
especially
that sends you off into the field.
Yeah, it will. Yeah.
I did that once early, and I'm like, ooh, that's not good. Make sure your wheels are straight before you take that clutch out.
So you're doing your downshift while you're still braking in a straight line.
Yes, absolutely.
Ben?
I don't downshift on a turn.
The question is, do I do downshifts in a straight line?
Yeah.
Is that for me?
Yes.
I'll do it anywhere. I don't care if the wheels are turning. It doesn't matter to me. If this guy's, you got to shift, you got to shift. I don't have a rule about anything on track. I'll do anything anywhere. I'll pass somebody in the S's at VIR. I'll shift the gears with the wheels turn. Whatever I need to do, I'm going to do it.
Would you ask somebody to downshift in the middle of their trail braking, I guess?
I kind of catch myself snagging that shift right around the brake release and like arcing it in sometimes.
Wait a minute. Are we saying be a Ben or don't be a Ben?
Oh yeah, it's tough.
To beginners. Okay. We're on training now.
Yeah, sorry, we're definitely in that zone of don't do as I say, not as I do, I guess. But, yeah, I mean, in my opinion,
bad influence.
I'd rather be good to the drive line, even if that involves doing stuff. You know, even if the turn demands that you sort of already be sort of starting to turn in as you're doing your downshift or whatever. I'd rather not sacrifice, you know, the safety of the drive line just in the interest of I got to make this shift in a straight line. You know, if the timing doesn't make sense. But I mean, probably for the most part, I would guess I do most of my downshift in a straight line. But you know, there's an exception to every rule.
Yeah. If you can get away with it, how about that?
Yeah, right.
It's easy.
So there
easier.
Are sometimes. Yeah, I mean, there are some times where it feels easier and less dramatic for me to grab that shift right before I'm going to re-engage the throttle, which might be as I'm whipping into the turn. I'm trying to think of like the end of the straightaway at Road Atlanta or somewhere like that. You know, I think there are times where I'm dropping into the gear even as I'm making that first, you know, left toward the chicane. I'll do it there. But usually, and to me, that's just in the interest of doing it at the lowest revs and least drama. But also, I'm so used to this. Well, it's like to you guys, shifting gears as you're already arcing into a turn or stuff like that sounds dramatic. But to me, it sounds like just a smooth move to kind of keep the revs off the motor and not a big deal just because I've been doing this stuff forever. So I don't know.
So we've digressed from the question, but hard to imagine that I went offline. But anyway, so we're going to turn in. We're looking at, well, we went to where we started braking. Now we're at turn in.
Yep.
What are we paying attention to at turn in?
I'll go. For me, once I've started turning in, hopefully I've already taken a little visual look at where I think the apex is, or as much of it as I can see at that point. But once you turn in, it's another good time to check in on your most important visual of that moment and see, you know, kind of see where you are relative to the apex. Hopefully you can kind of begin to see it at that point. And like I mentioned earlier, kind of that is one of the times where I'll be guilty of looking at what's right in front of me for at least part of the time. So just trying to make sure I, you know, put the car exactly where I want at the apex, and then as soon as you can begin to see it, you want to be paying attention to what's the track at that point. Once you turn in, hopefully you're referencing the apex to make sure you've done your turn in right, but it shouldn't be something you're changing. Like once you've done turn in, you should look at the apex as a reference. Like, hey, am I doing this? But there's not much you can do about it at that point. If you've done your turn in, you're kind of going to get what you get. So it's cool to check out the apex and make sure you're on track to head toward it, or you're going to miss it. But for me, once I'm committed to turn in, I already want to know what's going on out on the other end of the corner. Does that make sense?
Yep. What about you, Miss Vicky? What are you doing at turn in?
A turn in. I turn in. I usually have all my work done in the car before turn in on a straight line, and then I turn, look at the apex, gradually go in. I usually downshift depending on where I'm going speed wise. Usually bring it down to third, and then. Oh, it really sucks when you don't get that right and you forget to do it. There's a couple times I've actually forgotten to do that. And then, and then I just follow track out and figure out the best way where the line is, or let the car actually drive the line where it rolls best, which is how I found the line, by the way.
So at turn in, you're looking.
At turn in, I'm looking at track out, and then further down, I glance over at track out, and then I glance at my next turn. After that, where is the track going to be? You got a really weird look on your face.
Because I didn't understand your answer. It's probably me. I'm tired, but
yeah. So I'm looking in on my straightaway. I'm looking at where my car needs to be. And then I look at the track out immediately after. He still has a really weird look on his face. Ben has a really weird look on his face too.
I'm not sure your words are.
I was staring at the baby monitor, so
okay. Your baby monitor is right next to your phone.
Ben's doing double duty tonight.
They're fine. They're fine.
Mm-hmm.
So you're coming in.
You kind of broke down a pretty macro level. You're on the straightaway. You're looking where your car needs to be at the apex. Is that right? And then once you've done the apex, you are looking for track out stuff. Yep.
Right. And then the car at that point, if I do it right, kind of flows using all the track as possibly that I can. Right. Which is if everybody else is doing the same thing. And I'm also, of course, looking all around me in a 360 aspect because. That's Lemon's training for you also. And of course I'm looking at as far ahead as I possibly can, which is like 2 or 3 turns, if they're lining up.
So let's do NJMP. It's the one you've just been to last time, Lightning.
Yeah.
You're coming down the straightaway to turn 1.
Mm-hmm. All my work's done.
You hit turn in.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking at?
What am I looking at right now? I'm looking at how right now, because of how fast my car's been going in, I'm looking at the rumble strips.
On the inside or the outside?
The outside.
Okay.
Right now, I'm looking at the outside rumble strips. No, I've actually looked at the apex going in as I was slowing down.
Okay.
So I'm looking at that apex actually as I'm doing my footwork.
Okay. So what do you do if you're looking at, I know you're holding on for sure. So you're going towards the rumble strips and you're passing the apex and you realize that you are too far inside. What are you thinking? You're over apexing. You're inside of the apex.
I just found the track map. I just found the track map of this. What are we talking about? Which turn?
Turn 1.
Turn 1.
That's like a really fast turn. Is it?
It's
it
pretty
is
quick.
A fast turn. And if you don't
do
do
what
it
you're
right,
about. Never touch the brakes between 5 and 7. I don't think I would.
No, you don't need to.
I think I'd be ripping it right down through there.
It's quite fun because you got a little bit of side G going in there.
Well, the thing was that when I was actually hitting that turn, and if depending on how I hit that turn, my car would bottom out. And I'm not sure.
Okay, so turn 7.
Because it was sailing over because I would sometimes go up a little bit on the apex and then it would come down and I
Okay.
would
So
bottom out
that's
the
what I'm
car.
saying. You went over the
Yeah.
apex too tightly. What are you doing? Because you're looking at the track out, but
At
you
that
kinda-
point, I've looked at the rumble strips to my left because I'm trying to make sure that I stay on them and don't go off into the grass. Is technically what I've done on that aspect right there.
Okay, but you took too much of the apex. What are you thinking for the next time you go by? Because there's nothing you can do about it. You're already done, right?
Right, I'm already done. So I started taking the apex just a little bit wider, going out. So obviously I turned in too fast, which is why I went up on those rumble strips.
Or too early.
Yeah, it turned in too early. So I would brake later and then turn in later, do a late apex. And if I just did the late apex, it'd be fine. But doing a late apex coming down the straightaway is scary. It is really
I actually
scary.
kind of like it, but
I'm scared. It's scared. It's scary because literally I'm just like, again, I say I'm just holding on.
All right. Okay, so we're traveling. We just hit the apex. We've done our turn in. We're at the apex. What are we doing? What are we paying attention to?
Right now I'm looking all the way down at the next turn.
Okay. Are you paying
Which
attention to your
is-
car at all?
Well, I've already shifted down to third gear, so I've punched it, and right now I'm running on the outside, which is where the line is forcing me because again, it kind of takes an arc into 2, 3, 4. So if you just do it just right, then you just kind of swoop in. You don't really have to do anything, but of course I've touched the brakes again, which I should be lifting.
Are we talking about turn 1?
Turn
Yeah.
2, 3.
Well, 1 into 2, 3.
2, 3 is kind of flat. So, but if you punch it really
All right.
hard, you're going to have to brake at the end of that a little bit, but you don't want to because you're going into the S's on a steep turn. So it's a little bit confusing. I've touched the brakes. I've lifted. Again, it's something that I'm kind of working out on this last trip it's difficult because on this last trip, I was training a different way. So I was trying to find things a different way. So I don't know right now what works best
No.
for me.
I'm just saying it generically at a turn, using
At a
turn 1
turn.
as an example. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
You're at the apex. What are you paying attention to? Like,
At the apex, I've moved past the track out and I've looked down the track already.
okay, what about your car? Are you paying attention to your car in any way?
No, really, I'm not right now. Right now, I've shifted down. I've waited for the car to settle and then I've punched it again. So I'm not at that point. I'm not really even I'm listening to the car, but I'm not looking at the car. I'm listening to the revs. I'm listening to where my gear should be. And then I'm
Tires?
taking off again.
Tires?
My tires aren't doing anything on that area.
Ben?
Mine
Are we
are.
talking, Bill?
I don't know where he's going with the question. I'm trying, but I don't know
What
where
are-
he's
what are-
going with it.
One of
Apparently
the
I'm
things I
going
like
to the
do-
tub.
What should I be doing? How about that?
I like to check out on a corner exit once I got most of the work of turning done, and I know I'm headed toward being straight and got the wheels open. If I have a chance before I need to do the next rotation, a lot of times I will check out the temp gauge, stuff like that, through the oil temperature.
I haven't gotten to that.
Yeah, that's what a lot of folks are doing when they get to the straightaways. It's time for them to check on whatever indicators your car has to let you know it's your water temperature, oil temperature, whatever gauges you have. It's a good time to.
Is that
check
because
them
you
out.
have is that because you have time? I'm assuming
Well, right. Yeah, the
to really
assumption is,
focus on it.
You glance at it. I mean, the idea is, okay, I've got the wheel open, the car's headed straight. I've got a decent straightaway or something like that ahead of me where I can take my eyes off the track for just a second and glance down and make sure the water temperature is not over 210 or whatever your kind of markers that your ranges, your gauges need to be in. But yeah, paying attention to your gauges is an essential skill that everybody's got to pick up at some point. So otherwise you're gonna blow engines and stuff like that. The more you don't look at gauges, the more things blow up.
Yeah.
I've saved many race car engines by being able to notice like, this thing's getting pretty hot,
Yeah.
Okay. So we've now progressed to where we just hit our Apex. Now we're going towards track out. What are we looking at? What are we paying attention to? What are we thinking about?
Oh, I'm sorry. That last thing I was talking about, I thought we were already past the track out point.
No,
I know.
That's
So did I. I thought we were past track out. I
Nope,
thought
I'm
we were
making this
already.
This is
Bill still
painfully
wants to
long.
know-
This is utterly
Bill still wants to
painfully
know.
long.
He wants to know what we're looking at when we're sitting on the apex of the corner. So you've already planted your car on the apex. You've done that great. At that moment, that's when I'm sort of looking at this at the trajectory and where I am for track out. So even as I'm sitting in the apex, I'll kind of glance at track out, hoping I'm in the right place, but also there's not a lot you can do about it. You know, your butt dyno is going to tell you if you're in trouble right there. If you're not going to make track out, you're going to have to try to fix it or deal with it. But for me, at least, if I'm at the apex, I'm going to pay attention to what's happening with track out. But I'm looking further down the track if I can, like way further at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now we made it to track out. What are we thinking about? What are we looking at?
Gauges. I mean, depending on the car you're in, if it's like a Miata or something like that, if it's a long straightaway, likely you're gonna have time to get on TikTok, record a video, start dancing in the car, or
do it dominating with
emails.
Dawson.
Yeah, get on there, get on your LinkedIn, see who's trying to connect with you. You got time, but yeah, you check your gauges, check who's around you, and make sure you're copacetic with traffic, or if you need to let some folks through, or if it's time for you to jump on somebody's ass and pass them. There's always something going on if you're doing the right kind of stuff on track where you got a lot of people out there with you.
There's so much going on the track.
But the more time you have under your belt doing it, the easier it becomes and the more fun it is to me. Like the more it becomes just like blocking and tackling is just the driving part of it. And I'm just like Mr. Head Games all the time, playing head games and skirting around with people, whether they know it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Miss Vicky,
it gets easier.
Yes.
If you were if you're in a turn, how do you know if you're understeering or oversteering, or do you pay attention to that?
I'm not paying attention to it only because I'm going by the feel of the car.
Okay, so you're just catching it naturally, and
yes, if I've messed it up, I'm catching it naturally, and then I worry about that part next time.
why do you feel like it's a function of you messing it up?
Well, if I'm oversteering or understeering, apparently I'm not on the line or driving it properly. So I have to make those subtle corrections as I'm going through.
No, I meant if the car is oversteering, is the back end coming around or is the front end sliding? Do you pay attention to that yet or no?
No.
It's okay if it's no.
No, it's not. I haven't worked up to that yet.
Okay. No worries. Okay, so I guess the main point of our discussion was pay attention to what you can, be it visually, be it by feel, be it track position, be it car noise, whatever, but try to stay ahead of the car. Because if you notice, at no point were we talking about where we were talking about where we were going, because where you are is already done. There's nothing you can do about it.
And so is the next move. So is your next little move. So
yeah, the next segment's
right
pretty much set.
Yeah, if you're doing it right, it's all pretty much covered one step ahead. And you're sort of dealing with the relativity of what's right after it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So you know how everybody's always worried about staying in the moment. In racing, you want to stay a few moments ahead of where you're at.
You need to stay in the future.
Stay in the future. You know what we got to do? We got to go back to the future.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben.
That was terrible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
I thought it was awesome. But anyway, okay.